Hey guys, it's Madison and June is over, so that means we are halfway through the year and it is time for our second quarterly update for 2023. I gotta say, last night when I was putting together all the data into the Google Sheets from my little planning notebook, I was actually quite surprised at how drastically different some of the charts looked. In hindsight, it kind of makes sense based on what I did and didn't do in the different quarters so far this year, but yeah, it was a little surprising to see just how much certain things had changed from quarter one to quarter two. So let's go ahead, jump in, look at these lovely color-coded graphs and talk about what I've done in the past 3 months. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys was just how drastically my kind of language focuses have shifted from the first quarter to the second quarter. If you look at my first quarter's pie chart for language breakdown, you can see that Korean was very strongly in the lead. But if you look at quarter two, you can see that it's very drastically shifted and Korean is now the smallest chunk by far out of the three. And you can see that Japanese has definitely surged forward and become a lot bigger part of my study regimen. And if you combine those two pie charts from quarter one and quarter two together to show what I've done the entire first half of the year, this is the pie chart. And I think it's kind of interesting how even though during quarter one and quarter two, certain languages were little tiny chunks of my language studying or language exposure time, altogether, it works out to be a fairly even split between the three languages. Like, there's not one that is just a teeny tiny chunk of the pie chart. They all have a pretty decent representations. But if you break it down by individual language hours, my Korean exposure, like I said, has decreased a lot. In quarter one, it was 96 hours and 22 minutes. In quarter two, that has decreased all the way down to 35 hours and 6 minutes. My Mandarin exposure has literally doubled from 55 hours and 38 minutes to 111 hours and 23 minutes, so quite a significant increase there, mostly in Chinese TV shows. And then Japanese has also had a very large spike in time from 12 hours and 59 minutes all the way up to 67 hours even. So overall, my total language time has increased from quarter one, 164 hours and 59 minutes, all the way up to 213 hours and 29 minutes for quarter two, which brings us to a grand total of 378 hours and 28 minutes for the first half of the year, which is a lot of hours. I would not have guessed that that is how much I spend on languages. And honestly, I don't think I used to spend this much time on languages. I think that as I've been posting more regularly here and trying more challenges, I think that has really encouraged me to be more consistent. And also, I think just keeping track of it and seeing these colored bars on a chart has also been a really big motivating factor. And so I'm pretty sure if I looked at like last year, for example, and compared it to this year, that this year would be blowing last year out of the water just because I am motivating myself in these different ways and keeping track of it in these different ways. And so I think all those things come together to make this year a super productive language year for me. That being said, keep in mind throughout this whole video that this is just my personal experience. This is not advice. This is not bragging or anything. This is just what I've managed to do with my time. I'm proud of some parts of it. I'm not so proud of other parts, like the binge watching sessions that I tend to have. And I'm sure that some of you watching have spent way more time than I have, and I'm sure some of you have spent way less, and that's totally fine in either case. Everyone has their own language learning journey. Don't compare yourself to me. I just like to compare myself to myself just to see how I'm growing or changing or shifting or whatever over time. But anyway, back to the fun charts and graphs. So I just went over my overall time for quarter one and quarter two. Now I want to go through my active study time for quarter one and quarter two, because to me that shows a lot more about where I'm choosing to place my focus, whereas the total time gets really easily influenced by TV shows, which are more often just decided by when I'm browsing Viki or Netflix and just happen upon a show that looks interesting to me. So it's not really as accurate of a reflection of what I'm choosing to focus on, if that makes sense. But active time, like I said, is a much better representation of that. And so my Korean time decreased overall from 24 hours and 19 minutes to 16 hours and 9 minutes. My Mandarin increased very slightly from 11 hours and 43 minutes to 13 hours and 20 minutes. And my Japanese, the real big story here, increased from 5 hours and 46 minutes to 59 hours and 4 minutes. So when you look at the slight variations of Korean and Mandarin, Japanese really stands out as having dramatically increased over the past quarter. And if I show the pie charts, it becomes even more dramatically obvious from quarter one, which had Japanese being the smallest slice of the pie, to being the overwhelming biggest slice of the pie in quarter two. So that is definitely the dramatic change that has shifted in my active focus time. And the reason for that, if you have not been paying attention to my videos, I've mentioned it in like the past 10 videos I've made, I think, but I bought the Saturday Reader subscription and have been doing Saturday Reader literally every day since I bought it in March, or not March, April, which was the first month of this quarter, and so that's why it's such a huge part of this quarter's stats. I also bought Do Chinese, but that is a yearly subscription, so I've kind of been more on and off with that, whereas Saturday Reader was a more short-term subscription, so I felt more pressure to make the most of it while I had it. And so that is the reason for that. But yeah, if you look at the overall active studying time for both quarters, so for the whole first half of the year, Korean's at 40.5 hours, Mandarin is at 25 hours, and Japanese is at almost 65 hours, which brings us to a total of 130 hours and 21 minutes of active studying time for the first half of the year. And again, I'm very, very happy with that. That is a lot of time, but enough of division by language. I think the really interesting charts to look at are when you look at what I do day by day, color coded. And so here is a chart that shows literally every day this entire year by language and time. And looking at this chart, I think it's just so fascinating to see how that language breakdown shows up in the day by day. So you can see that I definitely had a few more binge watching sessions for Korean dramas in the first half of the year. And I basically hardly watched anything in Korean in the second half of the year. There's only a few little huge blue spikes in the second half of the year. A lot more red spikes of binge watching. And then also very obvious is the increase in yellow in the graph. In the first half of the graph, it's like almost non-existent. And then in the second half of the graph, yellow is there constantly. And here's a different version of it where I have the quarters broken up individually, but you can see that in quarter one, there's a lot more days where there's no language exposure or input or anything at all. Whereas in the second quarter, almost every single day has some language something. I think only 7 days out of the entire quarter, maybe less than that, only 2. Yeah, only 2 days in the entire quarter did I not have any language exposure at all. That is insane to me that I only spent 2 days not touching any language. And if you look at a daily chart of just the active study, I think it's even more dramatic, the shift that's happened between quarter one and quarter two. Number one, you can just see that there's a lot more active study overall in the second half of this chart, which is quarter two. And also you can obviously very clearly see that I went from almost 0 Japanese to a lot of Japanese and the majority Japanese in the second quarter. And again, breaking it up into quarter one and quarter two, it becomes even more dramatically obvious, just like the overall time, how just way more consistent I was. In the first quarter of the year, it looks like around half of the days I had no active studying-ish, whereas in the second quarter, I only had 7 days at the beginning where I was not doing any active study. After, April 12th? After that, I studied something actively every single day for the rest of the quarter. And a big part of that was, like I said, because I got the Saturday Reader subscription on, April 16th. Ever since then, I have done at least a little bit of Saturday Reader every single day since then. And you can see there's this long little drag where I was only doing Saturday Reader every single day and doing nothing else. You can see that consistent studying every single day and my determination to stick to that habit has really paid off in these statistics. And I think it's also really clear to see in this, especially this quarter two, how motivated I am by challenges. For example, I challenged myself to study Saturday Reader every single day during the subscription, and you can see every single day I've done it, and every day that passes, I'm more and more motivated to not break that streak, and so that's pushed me to be consistent. Also, you can see very clearly when I had challenges like the 40-hour 7-day language challenge, because out of nowhere I'm studying all 3 languages, and again during the news media challenge where suddenly I'm doing a bunch of Korean every single day. And so I think it's really interesting how those, moments in time are captured and visible on these charts. I think it's also kind of a good slap in the face to realize just how little I'm studying Korean these days. Like if you look again, except for those 2 challenges, I've not studied a single bit of Korean any other day, literally, except for those 2 challenges this entire quarter, which is so bizarre to me. And I really want to fix that. And so this is a good kind of kick in the pants for me to try and fix that and do more Korean moving forward. Speaking of that, as far as like my yearly goals this year, I'm obviously doing fine in both Chinese and in Japanese because my goal was, I think, try to study at least a few days every single month. It was like a really vague kind of goal like that. And I think it was like actively studying a few days every single month. And so definitely if you look at both quarters so far, I have managed to do that. Especially this past quarter, I've been dominating both Mandarin and Japanese. But my Korean goals, which I had way more goals for because it's kind of my, primary language, is the one that I'm the best in, and I want to, get as close to native fluency as possible by the end of my life, whereas the other two I'm just kind of, doing for fun more. And I've really been neglecting those goals. Like, for example, my reading goal, I have not read anything. Have I? Did I read anything this entire quarter? I might have read like a few pages of the novel that I didn't finish in March. I was doing so well in the first few months. I read almost 3 entire books in the first 3 months, and then I've read like maybe a few pages since then. It's terrible. So I really need to get back into Korean reading. I did buy a Korean novel, which is there right now, I think. And so hopefully I'll read that soon. But like I said, this is a great kick in the pants and a good motivation boost to get back to focusing on that part of my goals and not only just solely focus on, okay, have I done my Saturday reader for today? Good. I'm good for the day. So hopefully I can this month get back into the habit of reading more often. It is one of my huge goals that I really want to improve in, like getting faster at reading and just building my vocabulary step by step, but I have to actually read to do any of those things. So really got to get back into that. Also, I am still totally, utterly failing on the social front. There have been a few social moments in the whole year. I visited my friends who live in Daegu in February, and then last weekend I went again. So wait, was that in June? Or was that July 1st? Okay, technically that was in July. So actually, I guess I didn't visit anywhere in all of quarter 2. Wow, okay, I did no traveling. I don't think I even went to Seoul. I just utterly went nowhere. I guess I did go to Pyeongchang that one time when I went to the language exchange cafe, which was like one little social moment for the entire quarter. I went there to try and see if I could get a language exchange partner. I need to check with them because I have not heard back from them. I'm visiting the US for a while on vacation soon, so I'm probably gonna have to wait until after that to get anything started there, but I wonder what happened there. I'll have to check back in with them. I only went one time to that. I tried actually to sign up for a swing dance club, but something went weird in the sign up process, and so before the classes started, I couldn't get in the class, and so I'll have to wait again until I get back from the US to do anything about that. So I did make a few feeble attempts to start something, but both of them kind of failed. So aside from that one weird language exchange English chat that I had at the Bupyeong language exchange cafe, I've done basically no socializing, which is kind of sad and pathetic, but hopefully, again, after my US vacation, I can work more on those goals. Again, it's a really big goal that I have, and honestly, if I do more of that kind of stuff, I will get way more Korean exposure and progress just by nature of actually speaking in Korean sometimes, whereas now I'm doing almost no speaking in Korean, and so I think my Korean skills are actually like getting worse. Like I visited my friends, like I mentioned last weekend, the very beginning of July, and I noticed that like it was harder to talk to them, and I was like, oh my god, how is my Korean speaking getting even worse than it was before? This is terrible. I need to speak more. So hopefully I will work more on that in the future. We'll see. So yeah, my struggle with being a introverted, stay-at-home kind of person is continuing, and I have not really improved it this quarter, but what did I really expect? I don't know, but hopefully next quarter I can make a few more feeble attempts and actually get some things, in the works of actually making friends and getting out of the house. So we'll see how that goes. But so yeah, I think that's it for this video. I'm very happy with especially how consistent I've been in the past 3 months. Definitely some things I can work on and some goals I've been neglecting, but I am happy with what I have been able to accomplish, and hopefully I can continue to be consistent as well into the next quarter. We'll see how long this streak of studying every single day can last. I'm sure it won't last forever because I know myself pretty well, but while it does last, I am very excited to see what I'm able to accomplish and just how much I can improve and learn and do in the next few months as well. So let me know how your years are going so far and what successes or failures or whatever you've been experiencing recently. And yeah, that's all for today, and I will see you in the next video. Annyeong.